Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining the HR Tech Trends webinar series. You have been part of the Tech Trends webinar series for last 1.5 years or so. So this has been a very good session, and we have been getting very good responses. So thanks a lot for joining today as well with your busy schedules, working from home. Most of you all must be on lockdown, right? So let's me begin the proceedings, starting with the formalities. So the subject matter we'll be discussing today would be the reshaping the talent acquisition strategy to the new normal. So this is a very timely, and we know that we get a lot of responses from many of you, so that we thought that we should talk about it, and we should bring the best in the business to it today. So let me introduce myself. For those who doesn't know, I'm Chaturanga Senaratna. So I'm a customer experience professional and currently heading the customer success and strategic partnership for hSenid business and People's HR altogether. So moving on, just to give you all a recap what we've been doing last year and a half, we have been talking about productivity side of solutions with onboard experts. Then Peoplogica, today's the keynote speaker is from the Peoplogica itself. We will be presenting today on job fit and bringing in efficiency in recruitment process, accuracy and efficiency. Then of course we have been talking about training and development with Lab, how the e-learning could actually bring more value to us. And of course the wellness side we've been talking about with UDOC and Synergy Health. And of course when we connected, we were talking about the tracking solution, how it could help to track your employees and visitors, right, in a timely, which is a very timely requirement with most of the corporates we have. So moving on to again, just to complete the formalities, let me go through the agenda for today. The agenda is mainly, I'll be doing the introduction of the panel. So most of the panel knows the panel who's been there already. So, and when it comes to subject matter areas, so we'll be talking about the importance of candidate attraction strategies. So which is a very, very timely topic, what we believe we need to discuss, and that will give the introduction to the full session, what we're planning on discussing. And attributes of employees that support working from home. All of us are working from home. So anytime we might have power cuts, anytime we might have kids bothering us, playing around, but that's a new normal, which we have to look into, right? So let's look at that and we'll discuss on all of these items. Then, of course, how do we train your managers? Very, very important area. How, if you're managing in team on working from environment, the lessons learned and how we could do it with the experts we'll be discussing. And how do we benchmark them? That's a very, very key area. And finally, the how do we align with the current generation, the millennials and the Gen Zs? So that will be the next area of discussion we'll be having, and we'll be getting into the Q&A. So please keep your mics muted at all times. Any questions or anything like that, place it on the chat, so that place it to me or me directly, so that I can place it with the experts today who will be participating in the session. So so we have almost 70 odd participants today coming in, and from different countries I can see coming in. So everyone, welcome you everyone for the session on this day. And to introduce the panel, of course, let me introduce first Sampath Jayasundara, Director of CEO of hSenid Business Solutions and People's HR. So he is a visionary thought leader with reputation or anticipating where the industry is headed, with strategies to grow regionally while transforming company operations and millennials cultures to deliver high-level performance. He has over 20 plus years of experience in the ICT industry, and he serves currently, in addition to the current role at the People's HR and the hSenid business, he holds, is a lecturer in Institute of Personal Management of Sri Lanka, lecturer of Open University, lecturer of Postgraduate Management, University of Srivadanapura, and external lecturer at Finance and Management faculty. He is also a co-founder, director of Pioneer Institute of Business and Technology Private Limited. He's founder members of that, which is affiliated to University of Greenwich, UK. So Sampath, thanks a lot for accepting with your busy schedule and enlightening the occasion altogether. Right. Then, of course, let me introduce the next panelist and one of the keynote speakers today. He's joining from Australia. I think it's must be around 8 o'clock over there at the moment, so it's a little late for them. But again, he was willing to join. So Mark Purbrick, he has over 35 years of experience. 23 of these years as general manager and chief executive officer level, and over 30 plus years experience with director boards and private expertise in government control entities. So with extensive experience in the hospitality, retail, production, agribusiness, direct marketing, government and people analytics, he is able to assist clients to make right business and people capital, which is one of the main lines we'll be discussing today about people capital and selecting the people. So I think none other person we could have today to enlighten the session altogether. So I believe the formalities are done and it's time to begin the session altogether. So first of all, let me set the context for the session. So Sampath, this is over to you. Just tell us about the importance of candidate attraction. This has been always important. Now it's more challenging, but still it remains important. How do you manage this altogether, Sampath?
Yeah, thank you, Chaturanga, for a lovely introduction. At the same time, Mark, for being part of this panel discussion, because first I met you like a few years back in Australia. So like since then, I'm learning like, whenever I'm talking to you. So thank you very much joining with us, like, giving like, you are learning to Sri Lankan community and the community joining across other regions as well. So Chaturanga, candidate attraction strategies. So I will start the discussion with non-traditional activity, what I learned from my my boss, like, Dinesh, so many years back. So when I moved to management level, one thing he mentioned, I still can remember so many years back, maybe 15, 18 years back, he mentioned, Sampath, like, if you want to be part of the management, you have to do two things. Number one, when you go out, you have to sell. And number two, you have to attract people. Okay. So this very simple thing, like, you have to attract people, you have to recruit people. Okay. So I will start the discussion with, I don't think even my management team is aware of this. 3 of my senior management team members, I recruited from non-traditional ways. One is actually the person who is moderating today, Chaturanga. So Chaturanga didn't go through like usual traditional recruitment process. I met him at school activities, especially social activities we were doing. So different projects. So when you work on different projects, volunteer service, you understand the competencies of people. So you can easily judge the attitude to required competencies to whatever. Whenever you have an opportunity, you can like, go to your, let's say, address book and contact few people whom you know, whom you believe and suit for your job positions. Another lady, like, who is managing our marketing operation today, like, heading our marketing operation, I recruit through Lionisa. So again, like, when you work with social activities, you engage a lot, you understand the competencies, and so like, you can attract them. Third one, like, from my family relationship. So like, I knew the competencies because I knew the guy, like, for so many years. Now he's one of the person who is heading our delivery. So what I'm trying to tell you is like, you don't have to go through always very traditional mechanism, like, advertising on social media, advertising on job sites, advertising on papers, and onboard people. Okay, but same time, today, like, in a technology-driven world, you have to look at like, how to attract candidates, like, through social media as well, because it's a hot topic today, passive candidate hunting. How can you like, recruit people? They might not aware they are searching for a job. Okay, they are very comfortable in their current job positions. So how do you going to go through the social media channels and tap them? Social media channel can be Facebook, channel can be, let's say LinkedIn or any other, like, their blog or a personal website they maintain. But how can you like, as HR, how can you develop internal competencies to go through these social media channels and tap the right candidate? Look here, I know, like, you are working in this company or this is the role you are playing, and I have a fitting job profile. Okay, and so that is also very important. We have to develop internal competencies to attract the right candidate. Okay, and the third point is actually very interesting. Attracting candidates is one thing. Attracting the right candidate also important. That matters a lot. Like, that is where even we work closely with Peoplogica also to understand the right profile. How do you identify the right profile? Okay, so like, assume you recruit the wrong candidate for a senior position. Maybe after 1 year you feel like you're frustrated because your requirement remains same. The guy is not performing as per your expectation, because there can be role mismatch. So how are you going to avoid these kind of cases? This is very important. So I feel organizations are in a hurry to recruit people. My advice is it shouldn't be the case. Okay, especially like, not at the entry level. Even entry level is important, but at least like, mid to senior management roles, take your own time, like, but do a proper selection. Okay, and like, be mindful. Now, simple example, couple of years back, I think maybe 2 years back also, one guy, he was supposed to come for an interview. We realized he's not coming, but we got a call saying that, is it okay if I connect online for a chat? So like, then my HR, like, previous one of the HR personnel told, like, look here, if you can't come for the interview, this is interview with the CEO. So you will miss the bus. So, but I got to know, like, I had a chat with HR and I called the person and I told him, can you send me a resume? Within next half an hour, can you send me a resume? Resume means video resume. So like, can you take a 2-minute video clip from your mobile and can you send it to me so I understand you, so I can get into an online video, online discussion. So these are some of the things, like, we can practice things differently because our generations are different. How can you attract millennials? It's a different art altogether. So you have to be a little flexible in your strategy. You can't go for all traditional mechanism when it comes to this game. And look at, like, how best use technology in this game. We will discuss throughout the session. I think Chaturanga, Mark also can add a lot of value here.
Yeah, and
Mark, over to you.
It is all about technology, I think now, Sampath, to a large degree. I have a saying that you can't hire the best person if that person hasn't applied for your job in the first place. So the attraction process is actually probably one of the most important parts of the whole recruitment process. And before you can go out and start attracting candidates to your role, is you first have to understand what are the attributes you're actually looking for. And as Sampath has quite rightly said, the role benchmarking is a very important part. The first two things you should do is put together a position description and then put together a role benchmark. And the role benchmark really is your map of the type of person you want, the heart, the mind, the soul. And it is the parts of the person that will fit the role, that will give you job fit for the role. And I think a lot of people now are missing out on some potentially great employees because they're not putting enough time into the attraction process. So we've advocated for a long time now that the first part is to develop the role benchmark. And if you can develop that off high performers, that's even better, but or use the job analysis survey. Once you have that information, then write your job ad to reflect the attributes that you're looking for in the individual. And what we've found here is that the traditional job advertisements of a paragraph about how good the company is, then the position description rammed into the ad, and then how to apply on the company's terms, might have been fine for us baby boomers and the Gen X's, but for the millennials and the Gen Zs, is they want to know what's in the job for me. What am I going to get out of the job? And that's more about their heart and about the behaviours, not about what the role is going to pay. So it's a really important part. The whole attraction side is to get people to see a job ad when they read it, is they say, I never thought about being whatever it is, but that's me. And so maybe I should have a look at that role.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Now we've been talking about the strategies and different the traditional ways of doing it. And Sampath was talking about the 3 areas that we had to look into and all of that. But how does it vary when we do the working from home altogether? How do we get into this working from home culture altogether, Mark?
Yeah. So
Did we lose Mark or only me?
And that the companies would be happy with that, I would have thought they were crazy, because there's no way in the world that people would have accepted that their people would be working away from the office. What we now have is an environment, because of a virus, that has opened up, I think, a whole lot of opportunities, but also a whole lot of challenges. And the reality is that managing work from home employees is far more difficult. And what we've also found is during this work from home, the last 12, 14 months, is that employees that have lower resilience levels, lower independence levels, and lower attitude levels, they have really struggled in the work from home and will continue to struggle in the work from home. And the reason we're seeing that is that when you're at home and you're by yourself, you don't have the support that you have when you're in the office. So if you have lower attitude levels, which is measured within the assessment, then what happens is because they think more the cup is half empty instead of the cup is half full, and they don't have that resilience, is they dwell on the negative side of being at home and being lonely and not having the support. And also, if they're lower in independence, they need people around them. They need to be able to go to their manager and ask them a question whenever they need to do it. In a work from home environment, they can't do that. And we've seen a substantial amount of mental health issues within our clients' employees that are working from home, that have, you know, two or more of these areas, and they're really struggling. It's a real struggle for them, and it becomes then a real challenge for their managers and a real challenge for their employers.
Yeah, Chaturanga, just to add a little bit what Mark mentioned. Mark mentioned a very important point to understand, like, you know, work from home competencies. So even like, you know, what we could do is maybe this can apply for new recruitments going forward, like, you know, people whom we are planning to recruit. So we can develop maybe a job profile, common profile, okay, to understand, like, you know, who suit work from home culture. Okay, so you can develop a profile, test, automated test. So like, you know, when you are recruiting, you can actually even ask candidate to go through that test to understand whether this profile suitable for work from home culture. That is one side of the story. Second side, what Mark mentioned, on the other hand, your current workforce, they are already with you. And so if you have a good understanding about their competencies, when you are setting up work from home teams, okay, we are not in permanent teams anymore. Like, you know, we are in a very agile, dynamic work culture. So when you are setting up team, supervisor should know, like, you know, what is my team? Sometimes maybe supervisor's competency also matters. Assume, like, you know, supervisor plus 3 subordinates working on a project. If supervisor is little lacking sense of urgency, so you can't find resources into that team with sense of lack of sense of urgency. So you have to balance the right mix. Okay. So within the team, you find the right competencies to work from home. Otherwise, I don't think like a lot of people are looking at this competency mix when it comes to work from home. It's very important, like, you know, identify the right mix of people, supervisors and individual, put them into the teams, and then you can get a control output, like, you know, in a culture. Okay, that is one aspect. Second aspect is even we are one of the things we are doing, I'll share, like, you know, we have a lot of company initiatives. We have done 2 changes. One is whatever possible ones, we have moved to projects. So when you are in a project mindset, there's a start date, there's an end time, there are agile methodologies to monitor and control the project ongoing basis. There are, let's say, meetings happening early morning, like, you know, for 10-20 minutes. So you plan the day, plan, like, you know, next 3 days work, and activities are progressing. So everybody understands this project is moving. And when you complete project one phase, you can celebrate. You can, like, you know, get into a tea party. You can, like, you know, send some pizzas to their home, and, like, you know, maybe together they can celebrate those winning stories. So you can do that as well. So you break the items into smaller pieces, and work with them to accomplish these tasks in project manner, project activity base, and celebration also very important in this scenario. So I would say it is a combination of supervisors and managers and the subordinate. You have to get the right mix aligned so organization can benefit, and even teams will enjoy working with different skill set of people.
And Sampath, just adding on to that, and you're very right, is being able to predict whether people will thrive in a work from home environment is fantastic. But even more importantly is understanding the ones that will be challenged by a work from home environment, and then providing the managers with coaching and mentoring suggestions on how they can actually manage that and actively manage that, because sometimes you can't avoid it. And so having that as another thing. Just before on the screen was the team report, the team leadership report, and the team balance table, and that is a fantastic tool for team leaders to be able to better understand their team and to be able to get the best out of their team. And you want some diversity in the team when you're looking at the team balance, so that you can, as a team, deliver a far greater outcome to the organisation.
Yeah, I think very true. At the same time, managers' point of view, Chaturanga, they should be able to, in today's context, things are changing. We can't predict the future. We are in a VUCA world. So managers also should be able to learn, unlearn and relearn. Okay. So school teachers are doing, kids are doing. So why can't we do that? So it's very important, for us also to change how to manage these people effectively. There's one interesting point I was thinking sometime back now. My elder daughter is 16 years old, and she's doing different things, even getting into a UN, one of the missions, and doing some voluntary work online. So now I looked at how I engage with her almost daily basis. Okay, how close I am to them. So today's context, when you go to office, you can't wear a different hat. So I would say that father-daughter, father-son relationship, you have to continue at office environment as well when you work with these new guys, when you manage new set of people. So it's very important training these managers and supervisors how to get the best out of this remote workforce, especially even innovative stuff. You can't just ignore the innovation part. But I think creating that culture is very important. Effective communication, maybe even maybe even in around 5:30, enjoying online beer with your team members. That matters a lot sometimes. So get into a totally different discussion. So that will move away their anxiety, and you can discuss some of their problems openly. So I think these angles we might have to train managers and supervisors.
Mark, just to place a question on the supervisors, can you explain this, what we are showing on the screen currently, what we have over here in a nutshell? We are talking about resilience here. We are talking about objectivity of. So how does this support the managers altogether? This report for them to get their best out of their team altogether.
Yeah, so training our managers and supervisors to be better at managing remote employees. I just recently wrote an article, and I believe that it is 4 times harder to manage and lead people that are remote than if they're under the same roof that you're under. And yet, even with people under the same roof, probably about 50% of all managers and supervisors aren't confident people managers to start off with. So you go and then take, and put remote working on top of that, and that just makes it incredibly difficult. So part of this here, what we're seeing on the screen here is providing the ability to be able to, one, predict what people actually need as far as coaching and mentoring and training that they need. So the management selects suggestions on how to maximize their employee engagement as well as their performance. And because wellness, at the end of the day, mental wellness is something that we're all responsible for all of our employees. And what these do here is it's essentially a user's guide. You know, none of us would buy a car unless there was a substantial user's guide on how to use it, and when things were going wrong, how to fix it. And yet we employ people that cost a lot more than a car for the time that they're with you, and we get nothing with them. So they come into our workplace and we have nothing on them. We don't know how to run them. We don't know how to get the best out of them. And in the past, we've learned by trial and error. And that trial and error sometimes can take 6 months. Sometimes it can take 6 years. Sometimes they never get it right. Whereas with the ability of using people analytics, with using the job fit assessments, you can actually have all of that information before they even start on day one. And it provides managers with a real head start. And you know, hopefully everybody watching this seminar can see here on these examples, it provides a real head start to the managers on how to get the best out of their people and how to provide the best environment for them to thrive.
Yeah, and Mark, now one of these I think Sampath, why don't you share a little bit of your experience as well, Sampath, using this tool altogether? Because I'm just going out of the little bit on the agenda, but I thought that this might be a interesting area to discuss, right? What Mark, to support what Mark mentioned already.
I think, like, you know, what Mark mentioned is very true. It's very critical, like, you know, as managers to understand your team. So now, simple example, I think, Chaturanga, I aware, like, you know, we have done the competency assessment, almost all senior people at our organization. So I have all the information with me. It is not to penalize people, but to understand, like, you know, they are lacking areas. And, like, you know, one thing is, obviously we might have to come up with a longer term training plan and development plan to fulfill some of these gaps, because one day they will lead certain areas, lead country operations. So you have to understand what are the gaps in succession planning and then fill those competency gaps. On the other hand, working with them. Simple example, now we know, like, you know, in today's flat organization structures, one person is not just managing 4 to 5 people. Now, for example, like, you know, I'm managing around 13 people. So if I know these 13 people, now I have the competency framework, whatever, like, you know, assessment results with me. So I know, like, you know, what areas there are gaps. So if I know that, I can better work with them. So the time I spend with different managers are different. Okay. With some people, I might do a daily call, some people as and when required. So our work style with people can vary. If you understand, like, you know, their profile, because all have, like, you know, very good qualities, but they may be weak in 1 or 2 areas. So it's an art, like, you know, for us to understand those areas and work with them and how to, like, you know, get the best out of their strong areas. So I would say that is very interesting if you know the person very well, because we know they are, like, you know, usual life, like, you know, we are good friends, like, you know, in a typical work environment today. But I think scientific mechanism to understand their inner competencies also matters on certain aspect. So that will cover that gap, our understanding, the face value understanding and scientific understanding of the person. So that will help, I would say, especially remote work environment. At the same time, when you are managing a flat organization environment, managing more people, and also you are socially also connected the workforce almost daily basis.
Yep. And competency gaps are, I always believe that we have strengths and we have development areas. We don't have weaknesses, we have development areas. And it is about flexing across your competency gaps. But I think the most important thing is, you know, especially with what we measure with the analytics, is you can't fail who you are. You know, what we are is what we are. The most important thing is a particular attribute, whatever it may be. So here you look at, you know, objectivity of 9, so right on the right-hand side of the scale. If I have that and 10 o'clock in the morning, I could be with an employee and that serves me exceptionally well and I have a great outcome with that. But 2 hours later, I could be with a client and that same attribute of being high in objectivity may not work at all because I need to show more emotion in that conversation. And so the ability to be able to understand what we are and how we're hardwired, so therefore what we're going to revert back to, especially when we're under stress and pressure, is really, really important. I always talk about, in the assessment where in the extreme, so the the 1s and 2s and the 8s and 9s, that's where the magic happens, and it's also where the disasters happen. And it's where we're extreme in our behaviours, is if we use them really, really well and we can flex, then we can get amazing results out of them. But if we don't understand them and we aren't in touch with them and have self-awareness, then they can be quite destructive. And self-awareness is probably, I think, one of the most important tools of any leader, is to have high self-awareness, because if you have high self-awareness, your ability to be able to understand other people is improved. Your ability to have active empathy is improved. And there's a whole lot of things that come out of it.
Yeah, that's true. Because Sampath, again, in addition to what Mark mentioned, now we talk about this benchmarking. So now Mark works in a developed market in Australia, and that area mainly, right? And how did you benchmark it for the Sri Lanka, or how did you benchmark to the IT industry in Sri Lanka, or how did you benchmark to hSenid Sri Lanka altogether? How challenging was that on a note?
Yeah, this is very interesting thing actually. Like some time back, I read a book, like, so I think suppose that book explained how they are doing this role benchmarking. Okay, high performance role benchmarking. I learned like a few years back. Then later when I met Mark, I realized like, and there are tools to handle that. So when I came back, like, so I start applying that. So I'll explain one activity I did, I think, Mark, where like, because I got the help from Mark to do that. So what I did actually, I looked at in my sales team, I start with sales. Now I'm doing like, for many other roles. So I looked at like, because I'm working with sales guys for at least last good 15 years in my company. So my company sales profile can be completely different to another company salesperson. Okay, because it's a company culture, the product, and like, your leadership as well. It's a combination. So we looked at people who perform at sales department. I looked at around 8 to 10 people. Some are still with us, some are like, working for other companies, like, they are now heading the companies, they are like, representing boards like in different companies. So I looked at like, by name, 8 to 10 different people who deliver best results during last 10-15 years. I actually start writing down their competencies, what competencies they had. So then I profile based on that ideal salesperson persona. And I gave that competency mix to Mark's team, Peoplogica team. Can you like, do an assessment to benchmark this role? So I got the test. So now what I'm doing is, whenever like, I recruit a salesperson, I ask like, final, just before the final interview, I ask them to go through this benchmark high performance test. So like, I get a report before conducting the final interview. So I know like, what areas they are weak. I can compare and see the job fitment. I'm a direct beneficiary now. So I'm enjoying that. So my HR also know like, before sending the CV on those specific positions, they have to get the test done and they have to send me with the test report. So I'm really like, benefit out of that. So I can understand. At the further, I think like, Mark will explain further. When you go through the report, there are certain questions you can ask further to validate those development areas. So like, because sometimes when you ask those probing questions, you can understand whether this person can be developed fast on that area. So I'm a direct beneficiary out of role benchmarking. I think Mark can add a lot of things on that.
Yeah, I think every manager, every hiring manager and every business owner would have said on multiple occasions, if only I could find another Chaturanga, if only I could find another Sampath, if only I could find, that's the person I want, the person I've got in that role. I just want more people like that. The reality is, when we're subjectively looking at an individual that works for us that's a proven high performer, is we don't actually know why they're so good in their roles. We just know they are. And what we're able to do with this high performance role benchmarking is essentially solve that problem of how do I find another great, chaturanga, by assessing proven top performers, and essentially where we extract their success DNA, and we're able to then look at, the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 high performers that you have within a role, and especially in sales roles, Sampath, as you said, and find out what are the attributes where those high performers are nearly exactly the same. Because wherever they're exactly the same or close to being exactly the same, those competencies are critical. They're critical success attributes. And that's what we want to find out. As soon as we have that, we essentially unlock the secret of the role. We unlock what the success is of the role. Because that process is so powerful in being able to then select future high performers, and it increases our, which we'll have a look later on, but it increases our success rate of recruiting high performers by between 200% and 300%, and an average reduction in employee early failure rate and turnover rates of about 40%. Because of COVID, that has enabled us to be able to now offer unlimited assessment subscriptions. And what that now means is, at a far lower cost, a substantially lower cost, you can now assess every employee in your organisation, and therefore build benchmarks, high performance benchmarks on every role. And then importantly, as we've got on this slide here, you can now use a high quality, highly reliable psychometric instrument to screen all applicants coming into the role. So instead of screening on gut feel, in, out, on the quality of their resume, is we can now screen them based on fit. And what that essentially does is totally remove unconscious bias, and to a large degree, conscious bias as well. And, we have this feeling over here that unconscious bias and conscious bias probably accounts for 50% or so of the poor hiring decisions made within organisations. And it doesn't matter how experienced somebody is. It doesn't matter whether they have been an HR professional for the last 40 years recruiting people, or someone like myself at age 60, I've been recruiting people for 40 years. We all have unconscious bias, and you cannot eradicate it. It just is there. It's just part of our bones. So by getting rid of it, using the tools as a screening process, and then being able to develop high performance benchmarks, the power you give the organisation is incredibly huge.
And Mark, just to understand, right? Now on this slide, we were discussing on this slide today in the morning as well, right? So what does this mean, this slide altogether? If you
it's a really important slide, or really important study. So what they found was, if you see there that the first 2 areas really is the traditional recruitment process. And so the traditional recruitment process delivers 26% of the relevant information about that person in that role. Inherently, because of that, 74% of the time we don't necessarily get it right. And all of the statistics across the world, in pretty well every country, show that managers within organisations rank about 25% of their employees as being top performers. They rate about 50% of them as being adequate to very good, and 25% as being substandard, not yet competent. So 25 to 75, pretty close to the 26 to 74. If you look at all of the engagement studies across the world, is generally full engagement will be around about 20 to 22% of all employees, where they're actively fully engaged. They're the employees that consistently give discretionary effort in their role. So once again, it comes back to the traditional hiring process. The reality is, if we had a process if you ask any process engineer and said that the process we're using only delivers the desired result 26% of the time, the process engineer would tell you the process is broken and you shouldn't use it. It's not valid. On this graph here, what it shows is how we can take, using the psychometrics, so all the way to actually job matching, so matching the candidates to the role, is we can take it from that 26% to 75%. So it's nearly a threefold increase in the amount of information we have, relevant information about that person in that role. And, you know, 75% is not perfect, but 75% is one whole lot better than 26%. And that's the difference. That's why we generate, you know, those far higher percentages of recruiting future top performers. And it's also why we reduce the amount of turnover, because if someone's a top performer and they're enjoying their role and they're engaged in their role, they don't leave. They want to stay there. So it's a really important set of statistics on how important analytics are in improving what has been the old process and used for hundreds of years, but improving that to where it becomes a highly reliable program. I will just add to it that recruitment is a four-legged chair, and assessments are very important, resume is very important, the interview is very important, and the references are very important. But anybody who doesn't use all four legs of the chair, they're going to fall over. And the reality is, for most people, they're doing the other three things, they're just not doing the analytics side.
Yeah, Mark, now when it comes to analytics, right, and we understand the how the assessments work, and I think we get a good idea of it, right? Where do we start the analytics actually when it comes to the people analytics? Just again going just away from the agenda, just to understand on analytics perspective.
Sorry, where do the analytics start?
Yeah, so basically now when it comes to people analytics, now we actually look at the job fit matching, right? We look at I would say the attitude level of different segments, right? So what kind of analytics is available for us to understand the efficiency of the tool for us to become more productive as persons altogether, as supervisors?
Yep. So we have the skills and knowledge testing, which will test the learnable skills and knowledge. We then have the psychometric assessments, which they're more than just recruitment assessments. So you've got the recruitment side as we've been going through. You've seen some of the performance management side, so the coaching and mentoring, the team leadership. We've seen parts of that. What you haven't seen is also how they have a huge contribution to succession planning and to career planning, to redeployment. If you're looking at where you have a multinational organisation and you want to be able to transfer employees between countries with far more confidence that they are going to be high performers when they go into another role in another country, those using the analytics to be able to predict that is obviously incredibly valuable if you need that functionality. So when we're looking here at the summary graph here, what I think is most important about these assessments is they keep it all simple. You know, you don't need a psychology degree or an HR degree to interpret these reports. All the reports are designed for operational managers and leaders to be able to use them. And you look at this table here and you can see the grey areas is the benchmark. So that's what we're after. That's either being created because that's what the high performers are, or we've used the job analysis survey, or we've used a role profile from the library that we have available as well, which is available to everybody, to all clients. But this ability to be able to look at the person and overlay them onto the role benchmark is obviously really, really important. And the other thing that it does is there's a lot of assessments out there that give the impression that the left-hand side of the scale is not very good and the right-hand side of the scale is fantastic. That's not true. It's what the role requires is good, and anywhere outside of that, left or right, is a potential barrier to success that needs to be investigated during the selection process, and that's why we give the interview questions to investigate it, and then managed during the employee process, and that's why we give you the management coaching and mentoring to be able to manage it. So it's really important being able to understand that.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. Because one of the things, Sampath, I think what we've been going through, we have been selecting a lot of candidates might be out of the box, out of this range sometimes, but because of the attitude or because of the people contact skills, right? Still, we have gone ahead with these people, right? So, what are your thoughts on that altogether?
Yeah, it's like this now. Let's say certain job positions, there can be like, let's say when you're looking at, let's say 6 to 8 different competencies, 2 may be very critical. So to perform in that particular role, 2 may be very critical. Rest can be like, manageable. So like, maybe just because you are lacking on certain areas little bit, we might not reject the candidate. Now, if you know, like, okay, you can develop the person and you will recruit. It is not always, but this is good benchmark for us to make a data-driven decision. Okay, because this gives us the data. So like, it is rather than making decisions on gut feeling, like, because Mark explained in earlier question. So how can you make effective decisions? At the same time, when you are recruiting also, you know what are the gaps to develop. So your development plan, your training activities will happen in a very focused manner. So even you can check the effectiveness of your development plan, effectiveness of your training. Okay, so after 1 year, if the same person, like the same competencies appearing, there's something wrong. So HR is responsible to fill these gaps as well. So I would say it is not just to reject, okay, but to make an informed decision, I would say rather. So, at the time of recruitment, and this is the mix of a person we are going to recruit, and also positioning him in the right team. That also matters, like, because we know the team competencies, we know the person who is joining. So you can balance the right mix and put him to multiple activities, multiple projects. So I'm looking at it that angle. That's what we are doing at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Sampath. So, Mark, just explanation on this slide about the resilience, and does the same thing apply for these professional traits as well? What you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, no, it does. And so on this slide, which is part of the job fit executive, is it measures the professional traits, and resilience, I think, is going to be, I think it always has been important to understand that, but in the future, it's even going to be more important to understand people's resilience. And it's not that you don't employ people that have lower resilience. What it is understanding where they are so that you can manage it. And it's all about how you manage it. And also, we know that there's a really strong relationship between objectivity and decisiveness and where they are. So, if you have a pretty well aligned decisiveness and objectivity, then you tend to be a timely, pretty good decision maker. But if you have objectivity that's far higher than decisiveness, then you can be a slow decision maker. And understanding that, and therefore being able to mentor that person, that they need to make more timely decisions and be on top of that from the start, is very important. On the right-hand side, with the interests, that all comes out of Holland's theory of occupational interests. And this is essentially a measure of future employee engagement in this role. So this top interest here gives the interest for the individual and what they enjoy doing. So it's about what we enjoy doing. We may not be good at it. So this person is very high in mechanical. So they love working with machines. They love fixing things. They love using their hands. They love being outdoors. That doesn't mean they're great at fixing things, but they really enjoy doing it. So it's about what you enjoy doing. And we know that in any role that you could have the cognitive abilities, you can have the behavioural traits to be really good in it, but if your heart's not in it, if you don't really enjoy it, then you're probably not going to do it well. So it's a really important part of the measure. And, it's one of the the things that we have in all of our assessments where we measure the total person, we measure the heart, mind and soul, so the cognitive abilities, the behavioural traits and the occupational interests.
Yeah, that's correct, Mark. And Mark and Sampath, now we talk about this management insight, but I think we discussed about the interview questions a little bit earlier. I just want to focus on this is management insights. How it's been helpful for you, for you to, I think this is what you've been referring to earlier, right? So it gives a direction for us to correct ourselves or keep us informed about the person, isn't it?
Exactly, Chaturanga. Because if you know the person, now you made the decision to recruit that person, you know your team competencies as well. So even like, we can avoid these role conflicts. We can actually balance some of these competencies of people. So that will really helpful now. Even what sort of training we have to let them go through, like even outbound training or some other different activities or coaching, mentoring, and we know upfront, because otherwise usually what I see most of organizations, including our organization sometime back, so you just recruit a person, you assign him to a supervisor and let him run. So later only, when the guy is not performing, then only you look at it, okay, what are the gaps? How can you fill these gaps? So already 1 year gone. But now at the very beginning, you understand what are the improvements you require. So you work with a good plan. When you are appointing a supervisor also, you have to be very mindful. So you will appoint the right person to work with that person, so you can develop that person over a period of time. Because at the end of the day, succession planning is a very important area. You have to understand the risk of these positions, and so you have to build the people. So that journey, I would say, this is company point of view, management point of view, this is very essential.
Yeah, and before moving to the next question, just want to encourage the audience, right? If there are any questions or anything like that, please place it on the chat so that we can take it up during the Q&A session, right? So just to move on to the last segment, we were discussing about all the tools and what we do, but does it address the challenge what we're having about the millennial mindset or the modern day mindset of the candidate? Does this apply to it, and how does it work altogether? For Sampath first, and Mark can contribute as well.
Yeah, yes, Chaturanga, because we are also getting old now, we are representing maybe generation X. So it's very important understanding their generation as well. Usually in our level, when you are meeting people, we say okay, they are like this, and we all talk about negative aspects, but it's not so. Okay, the generation is different. Different is not negative. Okay, that difference itself gives us a lot of positives as well. So you don't understand. That is why initially also I mentioned, now if you know the style of working with your son or daughter, why don't you apply the same mechanism at office as well? How to attract millennials? Now, simple example I told you at the very beginning, when the guy let's say refusing to come for interview, saying that traveling time will take 4 hours. Okay, why don't you getting into a digital interview? So their thinking is different. Okay, our generation might expect they walk into our office, investing 4 hours for interview. But their generation, what they appreciate is, so CEO is ready to do an online interview and getting into a good chat. So maybe even if I want to test that person, I can spend 1 hour online and have a very good chat with that person to understand that person. So I think we have to understand how they think as well. At the same time, these guys are very active on social media, Instagram to various other tools. So they look at the same environment created by the company as well. The open mind culture, open door policy. Okay, so the ideas are valued. Okay, and we are not rejecting the ideas. There's no big hierarchies to work with. So I think we have to create that organization culture as well to attract the right people, because otherwise we can't say they are bad or they are wrong and just forget it. Because now if you really look at entry-level jobs, majority who are joining are millennials, Gen Z. So they are different people. So they have a lot of different competencies. Their thinking pattern can be different. Some people say they are Uber generation. Okay, they don't like to own things, but they will perform. So how do you going to get the results or objectives achieved organization point of view? So I would say it is working with them. Okay, and how best we can engage with them in even social media. As an organization, do we have an enterprise social network for them to connect with other people? So that's the environment we have to create for newcomers as well. If you are connected, if you are engaged digitally, so they are comfortable. So we have to make them comfortable, we have to absorb them into the organization culture, especially work from home scenario. If you isolate them at home, so can't expect results.
Yeah, that's true. Mark, little bit on the adding little bit more points on that one.
Yeah, I have to register a conflict of interest in that nearly every one of my employees are millennials and Gen Zs, and I've got to say, as a grey-headed guy, I love working with them, and I think it's a conversation I have with a lot of our clients, and especially with the older business owners and managers, because I don't think they understand how beneficial and how powerful these current generations are that are coming through, and there has to be an understanding by the baby boomers and the Gen Xers that they are different from us, because they've been brought up in a totally different environment. We were brought up in an environment of delayed gratification, where they're brought up in an environment of instantaneous gratification, and also they're all our children to a large degree, and we have been saying to them for decades that I started off sweeping the floor, and I slowly built up and built a company, and I can tell you it's a lot better running a company than is sweeping the floor. And so they've taken that up, and they're going, well, I don't want to start sweeping the floor, I want to start running the company. Now, it's managing their expectations, and a big part of it, I think, is probably one of the biggest tips I have for people is understanding that you can't handcuff them in. And what you've got to do is provide them with an environment where they can have passion, they can have a say, they need to have a say, and rightfully so. They need to be able to be heard, and they need to be listened to, not where they pretend to listen to them, but truly listen to them. And they need to be involved and made part of the future of the organisation as well. And that may mean sometimes where you allow them to go, and then hopefully get them back in 3 or 4 years' time when they've got more experience with somebody else, and you bring them back, and you end up in a far better position as an organisation. A lot of people find that very difficult. They think that when someone leaves me, they're dead to me. That's it. They're gone. They can never come back. And I don't think that's it's not a good position for your company to be in. And we've got to be more flexible. So I think they are going to offer us certainly a lot of challenges, but I think the benefits are going to far outweigh any of the potential challenges that people will have.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So let's get into the Q&A, because I have a very interesting question, different perspective. The question has come in. So let's assume a candidate comes in. How should candidate face this assessment altogether? What mindset they have to face that? Does anyone want to take that question? Or that's very interesting, because we are always looking at the recruitment point of view, isn't it? Sampath,
I think Mark can contribute a lot. I'll add just one point. I would say it's an open mind you have to face. Okay, thinking that it's a test and I have to be precise. No, it should be so natural. Your answer should represent you, not someone else. Okay, so that is my view. You get into the computer and log in and ask questions the way it appears to you. So that represent you.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Sampath. Just be yourself, and the reality is, in these assessments, they do have a mechanism in there that will ping you if you're not being candid, if you're not being yourself. So the reality is, answering questions the way you think somebody wants you to answer them is not a way to get the job. The reason somebody's assessing you is because they actually believe that you potentially could be great in this role. So why would you pretend to be somebody else?
Yeah. Why you need, Jayasundara, why you need to get the wrong job. Okay, by acting, like, because you have to you have to show, like, your competence, and then only you can get into the right job, suit your profile, and where you can perform.
Yeah, so it's a win-win situation into the day to both parties, isn't it? It's not only getting a job, but you're getting what you want, isn't it? End of the day. So
yeah,
can I,
actually always getting high marks.
Can I just add to that is, I think what needs to be recognised by everybody is these assessments are just as much for the candidate as they are for the organisation. It is just as important for us to place people into roles they're going to be successful in than placing them into roles they're not going to be successful in. We want to promote people to success. We don't want to promote them to failure. And that also works for internal succession planning and promotions. Too often in organisations, people are promoted to failure because just because they're great in this role doesn't mean they're going to be great in the next one. And being able to predict that and being able to manage people's expectations and manage their careers is as much in the employees and the candidates' interests as it is the organisations.
Yeah. And yeah, Mark. And then we just want to thank Shehan for the wonderful comments here. We have been talking about this assessment very positively on that day. Just to wind up, because we are just over 5 minutes, but again, I just want to take this question. Do we need to keep the candidate informed before the interview? That's not the way it works, isn't it, Sampath? Altogether, just to wind up.
It's very difficult to say yes or no, my view. Maybe Mark might have a different view. So, like, because it's part of the interview process. You might have 3-stage or 4 interview process. This can be one other line item. Okay, so I don't see a difference, like, whether we tell them, like, or just, like, ask them. So you have to face a test. What do you think, Mark? Any different view?
Yeah, it is. You've got to do the whole process. The process is, recruitment is a process, and I don't think anybody is against doing anything, whether it's doing an assessment or doing an interview or writing a resume or whatever it may be, if it's going to get them the job that they really want. I don't know whether I answered that properly for you.
True, Mark. Right. So I think we have extended time altogether, and we can wind up Sampath, but this is a rather interesting question. I just didn't want to avoid it, but I just want to take it because did you recruit the person, Sampath, you interviewed earlier on the video?
Yes. Yes.
It is, right? Yes. I know the answer.
Yeah, Chaturanga, there's a question to Mark regarding, like, Peoplogica motto. Like, I think maybe Mark can maybe at least one line answer if you can give.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's the love your work.
Yeah.
Well, the reason we came up with that was we sat around as a team and we said, what is it that we deliver if we do a great job for our clients? And one of the team came up and said, well, if we do a great job, then the person loves their work. And so that's how we ended up with that tagline, love your work, was because if we do a great job, that's where the employees are, is they love their work. And if they love their work, then I'm sure their managers will love them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. So with that insights, I think I would like to thank Sampath taking the time off from this very, very busy schedule altogether, and Mark taking his evening out for us to enlighten the gathering. So we had almost 95 plus, almost 100 participants today altogether participating. And it was a great insights, Mark and Sampath, and it was great having you all together. And I hope as much the audience also enjoyed the session altogether. And just to keep you informed, the audience who will be there for the next webinar sessions, we will be coming up with few very interesting sessions, and especially with the working from home environment, make your time for these sessions. We will be coming up with the next as well. So most importantly, keep safe, right? Adhere to the rules what has been set, but make sure that you do your work, keep yourself productive, but again, take care of yourself. That's the most important thing at the moment. So with that, I would like to wind off. from today. And sorry for extending the time by 10 minutes. We went over, but still, I think it was worth that 10 minutes altogether. Right? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sampath. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone.
Mark. Thank you, People's HR team, for organizing this.
Thank you, Sampath. Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Bye.